going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and if you guys like Tom and Think movie, TV show, video related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. And like I said, today we're going to talk about Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Alrighty, so at this point, we are one day away for James Gunn's new Superman, and finishing off the review series before that new Superman is going to be Batman vs Superman. And I was contemplating whether or not to even include this into the review series, since this is not necessarily a standalone Superman movie, but when you look at a lot of other people's rankings and stuff, they typically include this movie in it, even though it's not really listed as a Superman movie when you look at lists all throughout the internet. Now, I still remember going to see this movie in theaters on opening weekend and remember leaving pretty disappointed, but that was because it was just a regular edition. When the Ultimate Edition came out, it was definitely a lot better. Still a lot of inherent flaws in this movie, but it is definitely a much more enjoyable watch and has a better tone overall from the original cut. And just a reminder again, this is the Ultimate Edition that I'm going to be reviewing. This is typically the edition that most people kind of acknowledge. We don't really care too much about the other edition, just like how when it comes to like the Justice League, we don't really care about the Justice League. So that's why I'm covering the Ultimate Edition, because if not, it'll probably be a much more negative review than this one is going to be. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into my pros. And starting with my pros, I want to piggyback from my last review with Man of Steel. This movie kind of doubles down on that whole idea of how does the human race react to a godlike being in their world. And we get so much more in depth of that, where we have more of like the political side of it, trying to getting more involved to see if Superman is willing to abide by their rules and government rules and laws and all that stuff, or is he going to be someone that's going to only care about his own rules, and at that point that he becomes a threat, to the human race. You have humans, or people I should say, all over the world that either see him as like a god, a savior, a hero, and then you have the other half that sees him as someone that shouldn't be here. He's a monster, he destroys, he causes people death and harm. So you have that very fun, unique split between everybody pretty much involved of how they portray or how they view Superman. And I think, again, that's just a very fascinating idea. Like, again, we see Superman a lot of the times be so welcomed into the world in other adaptations of this character, where everyone just automatically sees him as a hero. But this is definitely much more realistic of a view, where the government's going to be like, this is not someone that we should just be open armed, because we don't know what kind of threat he is. He could switch from one day to the next and not be the hero that we expected him to be. So it ends up having a very unique, kind of viewpoint of how humans would react to some sort of godlike being in our Earth. And we again double down on it by seeing Batman's point of view, or Bruce Wayne's point of view, because this movie has a very good opener, where the opener is basically taking the final moments of Man of Steel, where Superman is fighting General Zod while they're destroying Metropolis, and Batman, and seeing it from Batman's point of view, where it's not like, yeah, go Superman, defeat General Zod. It's looking at the ground levels, looking up of how much destruction and death is being caused because of this battle. And there's no, to like a regular human a bystander, there's no good side or bad side, because both of them are just completely destroying this city. There's people dying. Their laser eye vision is destroying buildings. Cars are exploding. People are getting crushed by buildings. So for that point of view, you see that, and it's not go Superman, go defeat that bad guy. It's both of these people are just ruining our city, and that can change someone's view from one side or other of how they view Superman as a hero or more of a villain. And then once again, Zack Snyder is a true visionary when it comes to visuals. This movie is absolutely stunning, to again the shot choices, to the locations, to the costumes and suit designs, the cars. Everything is just so visually pleasing, such an amazing looking movie, and on top of that, you have such a badass score to back up with this. So you have all these really cool epic moments where you literally get chills because it's such a great scene, and you have that soundtrack or that score in the back that is just so epic, and it just enhances what's going on screen. So it just makes for a very, very fun viewing experience, and you have some great action sequences. You know, there's things to be said about the Batman versus Superman fight, mainly towards what, you know, the end of it. But the actual fight itself, it's extremely epic. It's done very well. It's done in a very realistic standpoint. And, you know, you would have a lot of people kind of say, you know, how is it possible that Batman can stay toe to toe with Superman? Well, there's a lot of different factors, right? You know, he obviously has some some kryptonite with him, and that helps weaken, you know, Superman and help him kind of fight back and stuff like that. And then also not to mention that Batman is not really your average human, your average Joe. You know, in the comic books, you know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the comic books, we see Batman be so well trained that he has a ability that's above average of a regular human. You know, we see him, I think when people compare it, it's about 3 times the strength, speed, and agility of an average human. And to kind of compare it, so like if you go to the Marvel side, Captain America would probably be the best comparison. Now, I'm not saying Batman is anywhere near as strong, fast as Captain America, because no shot, you know, toe to toe, Captain America is absolutely much more powerful. But that is probably the best comparison that I can give, because Batman is not necessarily an average human, even though he is just a human. He's definitely kind of more of a superhuman at this point because of the training, the strength that he has, and you see it being displayed on screen here. I think Ben Affleck is one of the best Batmans we've ever gotten, one of the best portrayals, because of, you know, how agile he is, how brutal he is, the way he fights. Like when you get that warehouse scene when he's trying to go find Superman's mother, it's one of the best Batman sequences we've ever gotten on film. It is so epic, the way he uses all of his gadgets, the way he jumps over things, he's fighting multiple people, using his agility, slamming people to the ground, throwing them over here, using crates. Like, it is such an epic moment, and that shows you how great Batman is as a fighter, and also how strong he is, because he's just throwing people around like rag dolls. He's picking up full wooden crates and just tossing them around. So you get a little bit of that comic book feel that he is much stronger than a regular human, and that's how he can somehow keep toe to toe with Superman with the help of kryptonite, of course. And this movie is just fun. You know, there's not a lot of like intricate positives I can say about this movie, but it's just entertaining. You know, you can definitely see kind of the vision that Zack Snyder was trying to go for, but if you want just pure action fun, this definitely gives that, because there's a lot of moments where it's super epic, great action sequences, great moments. You have some fun little drama here and there as well that kind of keeps you a little invested in what the story is trying to unfold and stuff. So this is just a fun movie. Again, it has a lot of inherent flaws. There's a lot of things that we can obviously nitpick about it, but you can try to turn your brain off for a little bit, for 3 hours, not even a little bit, for a 3-hour movie, turn your brain off and just have some fun of a Batman vs. Superman. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my cons. And there's, again, quite a bit to kind of go over here. Like I said, this is a lot of things that if you can turn your brain off, it might not bother you as much. But for someone that's trying to kind of analyze it and see if I enjoy this movie more than what I remember, you start to notice a lot of things where you're like, ooh, I don't know if that really works. And let's start off with, of course, the way the movie is kind of structured. This movie is kind of structured in a way where the first half of this film is very much like it starts out being kind of like an espionage kind of thriller where you have like CIA involved and you're trying to see where Lex Luthor is trying to get kryptonite, and you have all these spies and people in between and, you know, hired arms and stuff like that. And then it becomes this whole like political thing with Superman and him going, you know, in front of the Senate and trying to see what his motives are, if he's with the American people or not. And then finally, in the later half, we get that Batman versus Superman fight. And that fight lasts about 10 minutes or so. So this huge Batman versus Superman movie really is a 10-minute Batman versus Superman when we get down to the core of it. And while the fight itself is epic and it's fun and I enjoy it, it just ends so lackluster, where you have Superman saying that they're going to kill Martha, his mom, which is the same name as Batman's mom. And that's how they become friends, because they both have a mother with the same name. And not that I'm totally mad about it, because I can kind of understand where Batman is coming from. You know, it's just the memory of his own mother being killed as a child. He doesn't want the same fate to happen to Superman's mother, so he decides to kind of switch sides. Sure, whatever's. It is what it is, but it's something where you're like, really, dude? Like, just saying that your mom's name is Martha could have stopped this whole thing from the beginning. It just seems like a very weird way to stop this fight. And then you have this movie that feels as if we should have already had 2 or 3 other movies before this one. You know, during this time, this was kind of like the height of the Marvel universe. And I think DC really, really wanted to capitalize on these big superhero movies. So they rushed the Batman versus Superman because, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we were supposed to get a Man of Steel 2 and a standalone Batman movie before Batman versus Superman. But they jumped the gun and went straight to this movie. So now we get into a movie where Batman and Lois Lane are already together. Excuse me, not Batman. Superman and Lois Lane are already together. Lois Lane already knows that Clark Kent is Superman, so we never get the relationship between them and how that builds up and how she finds out, and the relationship between her and Clark Kent, or Clark Kent really working at the Daily Planet. So we never get any of that. So again, it feels like we just jumped a whole movie just with that one simple plot point, because we never get that Lois Lane Clark Kent relationship there, and we are just supposed to expect to believe that they're already together. Lois Lane already knows that Clark Kent is Superman, so that's kind of weird. And then we have Batman, who is very brutal in his tactics. You know, he uses guns, he's branding people with his bat symbol or his batarangs, because he's just so over that he's been doing this crime fighting for 20 years in Gotham, and seemingly there's no goodness in the world. And I wish we would have gotten that standalone Batman movie, because one, Ben Affleck is an awesome Batman. You can see how great he is in just that one warehouse scene. But we never get the reason why he switched up so heavily, where he became this very dark person where he doesn't care anymore. He's willing to do whatever it takes to even like kill people to get what he wants at this point. And you can definitely tell this is rushed, because like the opening sequence, beyond the whole Batman seeing Superman in Metropolis, is reliving Batman's origin story, seeing his mom and dad die in that alleyway. You know, so that feels like something that should have been in the standalone Batman movie. We shouldn't come into a Batman versus Superman movie barely learning Batman's origin story in the movie. Like, this should have been something established way ahead of time, and this should have been the 3rd, 4th, 5th movie in this franchise, in this universe, not the second one, you know? And that's where it just becomes so confusing, because it feels like we just jumped into, you know, into like, keeping like a show term, we jumped into season 2, episode 3 of Batman versus Superman. That's what it feels like, because there's not any established storyline that led us up to this point. It just feels so rushed, and that's where it makes everything feel so over convoluted, and it feels like the plot points don't mesh up properly. Like, even the way Batman versus Superman even happens, you know, it's all orchestrated by Lex Luthor, but it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like these characters collided in a natural way where it's an obvious reason why they're fighting each other. So there's a lot of things that are just missing from this movie. I also didn't really like Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor. I don't think it was terrible. I think Jesse Eisenberg did a good enough job for what he was given, but I think the Lex Luthor character felt a little too like weird and kooky and kind of crazy. And I feel like Lex Luthor, for me at least, I like him when he's a lot more sophisticated and smart and is able to outsmart someone and has a presence to him, not feel so quirky and weird. And, you know, it works in certain aspects. There's certain times with the dialogue and the way he acts where it's kind of intimidating, But for the most part, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity of the way they portrayed this Lex Luthor. It doesn't feel like his Lex Luthor fits in the world that we're in right now. His Lex Luthor is so much more, again, kooky and crazy and weird when we're in such a dark world with such a crazy dark tone. I feel like the Lex Luthor character should have been also dark in that tone, where it feels like it's kind of mixed match when it comes to the Lex Luthor character. And again, I've spoken this before in my Man of Steel review, and also kind of a little bit here too. The Lois Lane character, once again, I feel like she just has too much clearance for all these like secret operations. It just feels really weird to me that she has all that clearance for being just a journalist. And then also, again, I just don't buy the relationship between her and Superman. We never invest ourselves because we never got that storyline. It just still feels like they just met and we're expected to believe that they're in love with each other. And I just don't buy it. And I don't think it's Amy Adams' fault either, because I think she could have been a great Lois Lane. And as the journalist aspect of it, she is. But as the relationship portion for Batman, I keep saying Batman, for Superman, I just don't really believe it. And when we get later on to the movie where, you know, obviously what happens to Superman going against Doomsday, I don't believe that she is sad about it, because you don't get that relationship being built. So there's, again, just a lot of inherent flaws within this movie that just feel rushed. And that's been the main issue for this previous DC universe with Zack Snyder, is that there was so much going on in the MCU and they wanted to get a little bit of taste of that high of superhero movies, and they just rushed it. If they would have took their time, this universe could have been built to something great, because we had characters and actors in these superheroes that were great. And if they would have took their time with all these movies, took their time with this universe, in a certain aspect, this probably could have been better than the MCU, at least in my opinion, because I've always been a bigger fan of the DC universe versus Marvel. So it's very unfortunate that this movie was given the hand that it was dealt, but it is what it is. The Ultimate Edition is still a lot better than the regular one, but there's still a lot of flaws just lingering throughout this entire movie. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think about Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Edition. I still have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of great moments. Besides all of its flaws, I can still watch this and have a good time. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. Again, we are one day away from James Gunn's Superman. I'm super excited. But if you guys like Tom Anything movie, TV show, video related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.